Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Jewell. I work with Community Giving. Very happy to have you join us on a Wednesday afternoon in March. Uh, we're excited about today's webinar and going to be talking about a topic that we think is relevant, here in Minnesota, but also in many other parts of our region and across the country. And that is talking about land and in particular farmland, and when land can become a legacy to do good in communities. And we're excited for our presenters that we have with us today and the opportunity to talk about a real live case that took place with a very generous family doing some wonderful things here in Minnesota. So thank you for taking time out of your day to spend with us. Just a couple notes. One is that this webinar will be recorded. So if for whatever reason you need to step away and not and you can't attend the whole session, don't worry. We will be sending out an email with the link so you can watch it after this is over. But we hope that you can be with us and interact, because we will have opportunities also for Q&A. And we ask that you put your questions in the tab for Q&A or in the chat. There will be some very specific times for Q&A, but feel free, just as you come across questions that you have, to put them in so that we can make sure we note them and have them available when we get to the Q&A session. I want to talk a little bit today just about community giving in general. And some of you know that we are a collaboration of many different community foundations, all working together, trying to help facilitate, and as we say, help generous people change lives in communities. And in addition to just accepting cash gifts and gifts of stock, we also have had the honor of accepting various other types of gifts, such as real estate. And real estate is a specialty area. And so a few years ago, we set up a separate entity for the acceptance of gifts of real estate. Initially, that entity was called the Minnesota Real Estate Foundation, but when we created Community Giving, we changed that name to Real Estate Giving. It is a wonderful group of volunteers who serve on that board, who all have some expertise and background in real estate. And so when we have gifts of real estate, we rely on this group of individuals to provide assistance and insight into ensuring that we're doing things the right way, and that at the end of the day, we're serving donors and helping them take real estate, turn it to cash, so that that money can go to benefit charities and make our communities better. So we won't be focusing specifically on REG or real estate giving today, so much as today sharing with you a story and a case where this actually, a gift of real estate came in, and some wonderful things have happened because of that. We're very, very fortunate to have with us a partner of Community Giving, and that is U.S. Bank. They have some wonderful professionals available at U.S. Bank to help and assist and support our work, and we're just very grateful for them and appreciate that they're with us here today. Also, as you know, being a collaboration of many community foundations, we're fortunate to have executive directors in many communities leading those foundations. And it's those executive directors who are on the ground working with donors, working with professional advisors, helping them discover ways they can make a difference in their local communities. These individuals are always a first point of contact for you if you're a donor or if you're a professional advisor, and they can either answer the questions you might have, or they know where to go to get the answers. Today, I'm very happy to feature Sara Carlson, who's been executive director of the Willmar Area Community Foundation for over 13 years now, has a wealth of experience, and it is a particular case and one of her donors that came forward to do this wonderful gift and this wonderful story we'll be sharing with you today. And so I want to thank Sara for all the great work she does and introduce her now to share with us some of what we're the story of Arvid Johnson. We're going to hear more about from Sara. Sara.
Thank you, Steve. Well, in the work of a community foundation, everything begins with a donor. And so it's my honor to introduce you all to Arvid Johnson, who is the donor behind the case study story we're going to be sharing today. Arvid was a farmer. He's a third generation farmer who lived in rural Grant County outside Herman, Minnesota. And his family for generations was involved in not only egg production and cattle production, but also with equestrian. He loved horses and showing and training horses. That was his passion. And when he started thinking about his estate plan, he was involved with professional advisors who were in our area, even though Herman, Minnesota is about 65 miles away from Willmar. So it's important that the context includes the fact that I never had the chance to actually meet Arvid personally before he passed away. He was a quiet donor from our understanding. He did many things privately and quietly. So there wasn't a lot of history about his charitable giving. So that led to a proverbial game of Clue for a little while once we got tagged in. But it has been a joy to get to know his family as we've been able to come alongside them to make Arvid's legacy possible. We know he cared about his horses, his family, and he cared about his community. And so that is what guided our work. Next slide, please. So how did WACF, the Willmar Area Community Foundation, get involved? I alluded to the fact that we run a professional advisor allies network, and we have for nearly the entire time I've been here at the foundation, which engages our regional professional advisors from legal, accounting, finance. We do include business bankers and real estate professionals. And occasionally we include a few others who are on the periphery of that advisement and when it's appropriate. And Arvid worked with a local CPA who was part of that network. Started to do his estate planning in 2023 with another attorney who was part of the network. And they were the ones who cued in that at some point when this transaction happened, they may need to work with a community foundation. And the most important part about his will and simple trust that were created in August of 2023 is that he included a codicil that directed the trustees to make charitable gifts sufficient so that the estate did not owe federal or state taxes, and giving the trustee complete discretion on how to do that, who to do that with, and to what amounts. Unfortunately, Arvid passed away unexpectedly 4 months after creating his estate plan at the age of 80. And we know that he probably would have come back and done some more discerning on that estate plan, probably tuned a few things up. He was in thinking mode, but he had started his process and fully intended he would finish it. That was not part of the plan. And so we had a little bit of direction, but we did have all of the right tools that we needed. It was the pure recipe for engaging a community foundation when you need to do localized work, a partner that has a lot of tools in their toolbox and understands donor intention and legacy. That's exactly what we do. So we were very pleased to assist. Next slide, please. We actually got tagged in on this story in February of 2024 when the attorney called to say he had this case, wondered what our thoughts might be about how they could proceed. The details and the statistics are on the page for you. As to what he owned was about 1,000 acres of everything plus machinery and assets. The Minnesota farm exemption is $5 million. And when he valued the estate, the attorney, it came out to about $8.7 million, which would result in about a roughly $4 million gift between land and cash that would need to go to charity. So again, because we did not have a lot of information about Arvid, we all of the advisors at the trustee and the staff at the foundation convened, and we started trying to figure things out. Our staff got very busy trying to think about the kinds of recommendations we could provide to the trustee. And our real estate giving division, we are really fortunate to have that division because it was a seamless transaction for the trustee and the advisors who were supporting them, because this was a one-stop shop. So I really do think that helped quite a bit in this particular transaction. We did a lot of background work. We explored a CRAT, we explored annuitizing a few things, we talked about donor advised funds, we did the research on specific charities. We also educated them about the public support test and really small charities that were in rural Minnesota and how we wanted to stage those gifts to support them. This is all based in relational work, however. We were thinking about the fact that this was going to be a long-term relationship with the trustee, the advisors, and the family, extended family that was involved. So we began from a relational perspective because we wanted that end game to be the first thing that we were talking about. We were all going to be doing this on Arvid's behalf together. So 2024 was full of a lot of due diligence and planning and preparation for us to be able to take that gift. In addition, because of the timing of how the trust happened, we didn't actually get the gift until almost a year later. So we got the land in 2025, which then resulted in another series of due diligence actions. And it's part of the reason why we chose to partner with U.S. Bank Farm and Ranch Management during a growing season as part of our chance to steward that. But before we actually took the gift, we helped them to think about other charities that would be well positioned to take parts of the land that were not necessarily easily going to be sold and converted to charitable giving. And so that resulted in a piece that went to a local equine therapy nonprofit that included the original farm site and some surrounding acreage, and wetland that went to Pheasants Forever. We ended up receiving 371 acres of tillable land through real estate giving for the benefit of the funds held here at WACF, in addition to the cash from liquidation of the farmland, machinery, and personal effects. It then became our job to steward that land until the auction happened. And as I mentioned, that included cash rent and preparing for that auction, selecting Steffes auction, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. Next slide, please. It is my honor to introduce Arvid a little bit more to you by showcasing the video that was prepared between our organization and Steffes Auction Houses, who assisted us with this sale, to talk a little bit about Arvid and what was happening with Arvid's gift. And while we're waiting for that to queue up, I want to say special thanks to the family who helped us create this video. I'm Sara Carlson. I'm the Executive Director of the Willmar Area Community Foundation, and we are a partner owner organization in community giving. The Willmar Area Community Foundation has been around since 1998. We are a true community foundation, on the ground, working with our donors who have compassion and interest in making things better for their communities, and with the nonprofits who actually do good work on the ground in our communities. While our service area is largely the greater Willmar area, we work with donors wherever they call home, when the skills inside our toolbox can be helpful to them. Community Giving has a real estate division, and that real estate division, Real Estate Giving, is what is helping in the Arvid Johnson farm sale. Arvid Johnson was a man who was raised in agriculture. He was born on the farm. farmed alongside his grandfather and his father. The entire Johnson family enjoyed horses and equestrian pursuits. In fact, Arvid sometimes would say that some of the land was just the hay ground for the horses because he cared so much about those horses. We have been really honored to work with the Arvid Johnson Trust, accepting the gifts of real estate so that they can be liquidated to do good. The pride in ownership was evident, and Arvid wanted to ensure that whatever happened in the future with the land was also meticulous and well cared for. The decision to include charity in his plans was a way that he could ensure that the land is going to continue to do good and be in the hands of someone who will steward it the same way that he did. So examples of the kinds of local and more regional nonprofits that are benefiting from the sale of the property include equestrian pursuits, because horses were important to the Johnson family for generations. Also, pursuits about veterans and pursuits in the name of helping neighbors. Arvid was known to quietly just step in and help someone when they needed it. So support to local food shelves and food banks. The Grant County Fair, which was really important to Arvid every year. He would donate hay to make sure that the livestock being shown at the fair were taken care of. I think a soft spot for the horses especially. So Arvid's family is assisting with a substantial gift to help create the new pavilion on site at the Grant County Fair, which will be transformational for them. Our work at community foundations all across the country is to help generous people change lives and change communities. That is what we do. And whether it's an asset like this in farmland or it's cash, we exist to help those people be the change they want to be in the world. We are the partner that helps them cast that vision and make that vision a reality. And in this case, we are trying to capture that lightning in a bottle between a donor who trusted us with land assets and the change he wanted to see in the world. Thank you, Amanda, for playing that for us. At this time, I want to pass it off to our partners over at US Bank, both the Philanthropic Division and the Farm and Ranch Division. And we'll start with Jaclyn Schroeder. Jaclyn holds a law degree from Mitchell Hamlin School of Law. She is the Senior Philanthropic Advisor at US Bank Private Wealth Management and works exclusively with nonprofit organizations, families, and businesses to help maximize the impact of their charitable goals. She advises a number of public charities around governance, management, fundraising, and gift planning, and stays plenty busy beyond that work, involved as an active member of her community, doing board membership, pro bono legal representation, mentorship, and just enjoying being an all-around Minnesotan. We at Community Giving are really pleased by this partnership because Jaclyn helped mentors our community giving team as well around complex philanthropy. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Jaclyn.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. And I'm also going to share my screen to walk us through the presentation that we've made. It is an honor to work with community giving and real estate giving in transactions like this, where we can bring the expertise of multiple organizations to help individual donors fulfill their wishes, which at the end of the day supports the charitable organizations that keep our communities strong. So really, really proud to be a part of this. I will pop through to the disclosures quickly. By way of introduction, of course, Sarah already noted that I am a Senior Philanthropic Advisor with US Bank. I do provide services coaching, consultation, and education for nonprofit organizations, including community giving. We're really proud to have worked with community giving for quite some time and hope to continue to grow this partnership, helping them accept gifts of non-traditional assets, specialty assets, and sometimes even the easy stuff too. My co-presenter today is Scott Starkweather. I'll allow him to introduce himself for his segment of the portion. He is actually an expert in farm and ranch management and can actually share a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of this particular activity. One of the questions that comes up is, how does charitable planning come into play? Sara shared the story, of course, of Arvid reaching out to his professional advisors, starting the process, luckily getting far enough along in the process to create enough of a charitable gift. But we do often see families and individuals working with their professional advisors, their estate planning attorneys, their CPAs, to address the overall giving goals within their estate. The term estate planning sounds maybe a little bit highbrow, sounds a little bit of like a big deal, but estate planning really is the plan for all of your assets. What are the things that you own, whether that's land, the machinery, the house, investments? What is the plan for all of those things that you own upon your passing? The process of estate planning can be a lengthy process. I cannot find an estate planning attorney who will tell you that it's an easy one-day deal, signed and done. It is often difficult to make the decisions that need to be made, and it is a process to go through. But luckily, we do have spectacular resources available here and in connection with community giving that help individuals through the process and sort through the larger questions about what to do with what I own when I'm no longer here, in all honesty. There are several different ways to incorporate charitable giving in your estate planning process. A lot of it does require the assistance of an estate planning attorney, and so we definitely recommend seeking that help. But there's also things that can be done without an estate planning attorney. So there are outright gifts that can be made during life or upon death. There are structured giving programs. Sara mentioned that in this case, they explored things like charitable remainder trusts. Those kinds of tools can be possible through estate planning, where an asset is actually gifted to a charity, but someone in the family can retain an interest in it for a period of time or for their life and actually receive an income stream. So there are tools that we call structured giving programs or split interest programs that help individuals combine their charitable giving with leaving assets to heirs as well. Again, some giving plans can be initiated during life. Others can be built into the estate planning process with the attorney that actually don't trigger on until passing. So very, can be very complicated, but working with your professional advisors can break things down for you and make it a little bit more straightforward. For real estate specifically, what we're talking about today, real estate, the options that would be available would be an outright gift to a charitable organization or community foundation, or a bargain sale. That's another opportunity for giving, where it is a sale to a charity, but it is discounted. When that happens, there is less of a charitable tax deduction for that gift. But again, it does provide some income back to the donor. So and that can work really well, in particular with real estate that, for example, the ultimate charity wishes to use. So for example, had Arvid created a plan where he gifted some of that land and real estate to the equine charitable organization, he could have actually sold it to them at a steep discount so that they could have owned it and used the land. He could have done that either in life or upon passing. We often see things like this when there is real estate that is adjacent to a nonprofit organization, but and can be of use to the nonprofit organization. And the organization wants to purchase it, but the seller is also a donor to the organization and can sell it to them at a reduced price. So bargain sales work really well if the organization, the charitable organization receiving the gift, actually intends to use it and has an interest in the property itself for their charitable purposes. More common, however, are the outright gifts. When receiving an outright gift, and Sara alluded to this as well, it does require a great deal of due diligence on the charity's behalf. Accepting ownership, becoming part of what we call the chain of title, aligning yourself within that chain of title for a piece of real property does create a liability for the organization. Here again, working with real estate giving and organizations like that can be very, very helpful. It is very critical for my nonprofit partners out there to make sure that your gift acceptance policies address what kinds of authority within your organization needs to be achieved in order to accept a gift of real estate. What kinds of due diligence need to be accomplished before the organization says yes. That's really, really important. Also, sometimes in real estate giving, we can see retained life estate where the donor will actually retain the ability to use the property during their lifetime. And it actually doesn't pass to the charitable organization until their passing as far as use, but the ownership passes while the donor is still using the property. So for that piece of real estate, the ownership is separated from the right to use it. The donor retains a right to use it. The nonprofit owns it. We do see that frequently in cases where donors want to make sure that the nonprofit organization can receive it, is ready to receive it, and the donor wants it wrapped up and done and off of their estate, out of their estate for estate tax purposes and for planning purposes. And then, of course, Sara alluded to a charitable remainder trust. This is one of those structured plans that we see quite frequently. Real estate works really well in charitable remainder trusts. Certain kinds of trusts, in particular, what we call a flip trust, where the charitable remainder trust receives the asset, actually owns the real estate, and then provides an income stream back to the donor for either a period of years of the life of the donor. The flip provision of that trust being the moment in time when that income stream to the donor turns on. So there are ways to construct charitable remainder trusts to protect the donor, to protect the asset, and to protect the charitable organization. Definitely for the cases of retained life estate or charitable remainder trusts, we strongly advise individual donors to seek legal counsel. These are not common. These are complicated gifts, but they turn out absolutely wonderfully for the donor, both from a peace of mind standpoint and their ability to support the charities they love, and also from a tax standpoint, as they help alleviate sometimes income taxes and also certainly sometimes state and or federal estate taxes upon their passing. Important pieces to keep in mind for the charity who benefits from a real estate gift. And I mentioned it previously. I'll say it again. The gift acceptance policy is absolutely critical for the organization receiving the gift. Making sure that your board policies articulate when you will and won't accept a gift, the kinds of real estate that is acceptable, and more importantly, what due diligence steps need to be taken. When do you bring in legal counsel to accept that gift? When might you work with a partner like real estate giving to make the transaction more simple? When might you work directly with an organization like U.S. Bank's Farm and Ranch Management? There are times when the gift to the charitable organization is a spectacular gift, but might be a type of asset that requires specific expertise. We did, in this particular case, have two issues come up. One, that the timing of the gift was not ideal for the purpose of liquidation. It's not a great time to send hay ground when everyone is out cutting their first cut of hay. That's a hard time to sell the real estate, and you may not get the best price for it. So especially with ag land, the timing of the sale matters. Additionally, some real estate gifts have other specific expertise needed. It might be commercial property, where the management of the property or rent, commercial rent needs to be collected. It might be multifamily property, where rents from several people need to be collected. These are the times when it is key to bring in outside experts and outside help. And Scott will talk a little bit more about some of this expertise that our team brings. But these are the considerations that an organization needs to take on to think about ahead of time as they're developing their gift acceptance policy. Donors also don't often think of these income-producing assets as good charitable gifts, but again, with good counsel, they can be very, very wise charitable gifts. Quickly, I'd like to touch base on a couple of the common charitable trust types that we see, and again, often funded with real estate. Charitable remainder trusts have been mentioned. This was not what was used in the case that we're talking about today with the Arvid Johnson property, but it is a really frequently used vehicle for supporting charitable entities. They are irrevocable, so very important to make sure that as drafted and as executed, the trust itself accomplishes all of the objectives of the donor and the charitable organization. To break it down very simply, very straightforwardly, the donor contributes a gift into a trust and receives an income stream back, either for a term of years or for life. If that income stream isn't to the donor themselves, it could be to another taxpaying entity, an heir, a child, a spouse, a grandchild. Then when the term of the trust is completed, maybe if it was a term of years, the clock ticks on the final year. If it was tied to the life of the income beneficiary, when that person passes away, the trust terminates, and the remaining assets of that trust can then go directly into a donor-advised fund, a foundation, or directly to a charitable entity. In this way, this split interest vehicle, this split interest trust, provides an income stream to the donor, provides a partial income tax deduction in the year the trust is created, provides a spectacular charitable gift. One of the benefits to donors is knowing that all of these items are wrapped up, tied up with a neat little bow, and the planning can be done in advance of someone's passing. There are so many kinds of charitable remainder trusts. I won't dig into all of it today. We often joke in our industry that this is the alphabet soup of planned giving. When we talk about CRUTs and CRATs and NICRUTs and NIMCRUTs, you see them all on the screen. A charitable remainder unit trust is the CRUT. A charitable remainder annuity trust is a CRAT. The difference there is simply how that annual income stream is calculated to the individual. A net income trust, or a net income with a makeup provision, actually allows a trust to change how much it distributes to the income beneficiary based on a flip provision. So, for example, if real estate is contributed to a charitable remainder unit trust that is actually a net income charitable remainder unit trust, the flip provision in that trust might be the sale of the property. When that property sells, then, or if when that property sells, then the distribution to the income beneficiary actually is tied to the value of the trust and not simply the net income of that trust. This is how we can make sure that if a piece of real estate that was donated to a charitable organization is not producing income, the trust does not run a deficit or become depleted or have distributions that it can't satisfy. Lots of tax terminology, lots of specificity on this in these tools, but the beauty of them is their flexibility as they're developed and the way they can be shaped in order to meet the needs of the donor and the benefiting charity. Step one, the donor creates the trust. This is done with the advice of legal counsel to actually draft the trust document. Then the donor actually funds the trust. In some case, that's retitling the asset to make sure that the trust actually owns the real estate that is in it. Then once the trust is funded, it pays out that income stream back to the donor or a income beneficiary. Like I said, it might be a child or grandchild for the term of the trust. And then again, as I mentioned previously, the final step is that when that trust terminates, either the passing of the income beneficiary or after a term of years, the remainder of that trust actually gets paid out to the charity itself, which then can create the fund or create the dollars available for programmatic efforts by the organization. Charitable lead trust, I'll touch on this. It is a less common charitable vehicle, but it is one that we see. It's basically the flip. It's basically the reverse of a charitable remainder trust. In the case of a charitable lead trust, the donor actually contributes to the trust, contributes the assets to the trust. During the trust term, it actually distributes to charity. It distributes to the donor advised fund or the foundation or directly to a public charity. And then upon the trust terminating, the end of that term, the assets remaining in the trust, whatever is inside that trust, goes to that tax-paying heir. So that might be the child or grandchild. Charitable lead trusts work really well if there is an asset type, a business interest, or a piece of real estate that is income producing that the donor wishes to pass on to their children or grandchildren, but also wishes to support charity and achieve some tax benefits through the process. So again, there's different ways to establish charitable lead trusts. They do require legal counsel. They do tend to be less common than charitable remainder trusts, but it is something that we see donors doing, again, to achieve really spectacular estate planning benefits in particular. Important to know for my charitable organizations out there, there are tax forms that are required and estate tax forms that are required and gift forms that are required. There are steps that are very important to follow clearly. This is why working with professionals like real estate giving or community giving is really helpful. There are forms that the donor needs to provide in their tax paperwork when they make a charitable gift. There are forms that the charity needs to provide when they receive a gift. And then, of course, gifts in particular of real estate, gifts over any gift over the $5,000 in value does require an appraisal, a qualified appraisal, unless that is cash or publicly traded stock. So there are important steps to keep in mind as you're going through this. And I will turn it over to Scott to introduce himself and talk a little bit about the actual farm and ranch management process.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jaclyn. So it's definitely on the situation as far as great to be part of the team. And it definitely takes a team as far as when you have a gift of this size and this complexity. So as part of the farm and ranch management, just to give a little bit of an overview of the organization that we work within, it's purely within the confines of U.S. Bank. We're all U.S. Bank employees. We have and U.S. Bank has chosen as far as to really put together this specialized group of people entirely dedicated to focus on managing of farms and ranches throughout the entire U.S. So we have 11 offices with a variety of different expertise as far as in different areas, everything from trees, nuts, and vines when you get out west as far as to cotton, as far as in the South, but really basically here in the Midwest is where we have a large concentration of our farm managers in focus as far as on corn and soybean type of farming operations. With that, we have a number of years of experience. We have over 300 years of experience with these individuals and nearly 500,000 acres that we'll actually farm, with assets as far as of about $1.1 billion. To give a little bit, U.S. Bank is probably not the largest farm management firm in the country. Probably not one that you've heard of, quite frankly, as far as on an ongoing basis. We're really a very boutique type farm management firm that focuses really just on working largely with U.S. Bank clients and customers that really need those specialized services as far as to manage those farm assets. Much like you and I would talk with our financial investor as far as in choosing what stocks and bonds as far as to invest in. It's really kind of a lot of the same services that we provide as far as our clients, that have farmland in their investment portfolios and don't have maybe that expertise or a generation or two as far as removed from the farm. A lot of our involvement is really kind of gets a lot down to the people management side of things too, and stepping into some situations really that we try to de-escalate it or eliminate a lot of the stress as far as from the conflict or the situation that's being given. And I think there's not a lot of organizations, especially financial organizations, that have chose as far as to have their own farm management firm. So again, I think it's one of those differentiating factors that a lot of our financial advisors take advantage of as far as in introducing us as far as to the clients that do work with the farm real estate at the same time as far as in their portfolio. As we really look forward, there's a lot that we bring to the table as far as for our clients, but it really kind of segregates itself into three separate buckets. That first bucket being that lease and the communication, where when a farm is acquired by an individual or a group, sometimes they might need a new tenant. And we have as far as a really defined process as far as in helping select, as far as in screen new tenants. We also look as far as at different types of leases. Does it even have a written lease? A lot of farms do not. And that opens up as far as a fair amount of risk, and part of our fiduciary responsibilities as a farm manager in many of these situations is to make sure that we're protecting the financial interest as far as of our clients and customers. Farming, with us in the Midwest, our local news will cover it, and we know that it's a growing complex business as far as with anything from government entities as far as to world trade and how it affects as far as the value of the farm or the value of the commodities that we're producing. And all of that is information that we take in, digest, and factor in as far as to how we manage and take care of as far as other farming situations that we were given. A lot too, as far as on the farm, in that second bucket on the farm stewardship side, is it's a long-term value for many people. And when it is that long-term value, we do put together as far as a very comprehensive plan to protect that value going forward. Not just simply as far as, hey, how can we get this? What's the highest price that we can rent it for this year? And we'll worry about next year. That's really not a philosophy that works really well in the agricultural world. And definitely as far as in our farm management side, is we really have to protect that long-term income stream and thus the long-term value of the farm. We do regular inspections. We manage those government relationships. We also, as far as do a number of capital improvement projects, much like our houses that we live in. We have to make sure the siding's good, the windows good, the roofs are good. So all those little capital improvement projects to protect that value of the asset are things that we work on too. And much like we talked about in the Arvid Johnson situation, is sometimes there's the disposition as far as, or the sale as far as of the property, and we really can manage all aspects as far as of that sale. And even Jaclyn mentioned as far as timing, timing as far as of when we can make a sale makes a huge difference. And that's definitely something that we can bring to the table as far as on a regular basis. We also negotiate easements as well as a number of different specialty leases as far as when those situations occur. But again, I think it comes back down as far as to being that specialty farm management firm or that boutique type farm management firm with a lot of expertise as far as to bring specifically as far as whatever situation you have. A lot of our clients, they really have inherited the farms. More times than not, they're absentee landowners, either that first generation or second generation, that aren't actively engaged in farming today. And that's why they really need somebody with that expertise to step in and be able as far as to manage that asset today as far as and going forward. In many of those, it can be families, it can be, as in this situation, it can be a charity or a number of different organizations. So it's really just about, I think from your perspective, knowing that there's individuals out there to call, and who are the best individuals to call when a situation like this presents itself to you guys. Because again, timing in specific circumstances can dramatically affect as far as that asset value going forward. On the go forward, as in this situation, we alluded to the timing, but there's also as far as a variety of other considerations to keep in mind. What is the correct selling price as far as, do we want to list it? Or, do we want to even do a public auction or a private sale? And sometimes that might even be determined as far as by the actual donor, as far as to give it to you, might have certain constraints on those. And we can certainly navigate those specific situations. And actually, just like in this situation with Mr. Johnson, who's partnered with Steffes Auctioneering as far as to leverage the relationship that they had in that local market to make sure that we really deliver the best price available. We developed that sales strategy, again, working with our partners and really, working from a timing standpoint, both to maximize the value of the asset that we can sell as far as and generate those funds for the community foundation, or is it something that we might have to liquidate it a little bit quicker as far as if there's a timing or the need for those funds might be sooner. So we can certainly compare and contrast the different strategies as far as to determine the appropriate sales. And I think as far as with that pretty well wraps up as far as some of the things that I can bring to this specific situation. But I do believe as far as it's definitely good to have a great team and know where to go as far as when that situation comes, as far as an asset of land is given as far as to your guys' organizations. With that, Miss Sara, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Scott, for sharing that, and Jaclyn. I will attest to the fact that while I am a farm girl raised on the farm, and I missed the farm, and I had my barn boots ready to go for this farm gift, it was really a relief for Steve and I to be able to tag in our partners at US Bank, because they alluded to a number of the things that we ended up really needing their expertise on. One being talent. We needed a new tenant for part of the land. We needed to negotiate the leasing, paying bills. There was a CRP on part of this land. There was also a gravel lease on part of the land. And there were some uncertainties on how water management was going to be happening. And so our farm and ranch manager, Heather, who happened to be located right in immediate geography to the land we were gifted, was an amazing member of our team to make sure that all of those things were handled as part of our due diligence. So we did that due diligence before we accepted the gift, but there was a whole host of due diligent things that we needed to do to steward and manage that gift and also to prepare it for sale. So as we mentioned earlier, we did have the land through a growing season. So US Bank Farm and Ranch Management handled all of that for us. Every time the wind blew or there was hail, it wasn't my responsibility to get in the car and drive down there to make sure that the land was in good shape, where the crop was looking good. Heather took care of all of that. And so she quickly became one of our favorite people during that growing season. Amanda, will you put the aerial view of the map up for me? So this is the aerial view of the land that we were given, outlined in red, those 3 parcels. The parcel in the middle between track 2 and track 3 is what is actually directly gifted to Pheasants Forever. And as I mentioned at the start, there were no directions. We had no clues from Mr. Johnson himself on any favored charities, causes, no direct bequests to charity made at all. It was all within the provision of the trustee and his chosen partners. So we all worked pretty hard to try and figure out what would make sense. And that direct gift to Pheasants Forever, not coming through us, made the most sense. And you'll also see just south of track number 1, there's a small little almost triangular shape. That is the piece that went to the equine therapy nonprofit that's located there in Herman. So during this time, this is, you can see this, the sheet from the auction company, but during this time, all of this due diligence and all of the wrinkles and crinkles in this land transaction were ironed out. We were working on title opinions and the abstract updates and all of the market comps and valuation as well, so that we could be taking advantage of that growing season while the land was actually planted with crops and harvested. And we gave a young farmer an opportunity to handle some of the land for the growing season, which was wonderful. But it also gave us the time to select our next partner. Through an RFP process, we selected Steffes Auction. And as Scott mentioned, there were a number of reasons why we did that. But the most deciding factors for us were, A, they had had a prior relationship with the Arvid Johnson family handling the machinery auction after his passing. And we were really impressed by the marketing plan that they put together to help us. And again, even though this wasn't part of the partnership with US Bank Farm and Ranch Management, having the farmland manager who was in this general vicinity, that made the partnership even stronger. And both of these partners, between Steffes Auction and US Bank, were worth their weight in gold for us. And if you'll go to the next slide, you'll see how the land auction happened. So February 26th was the actual land auction where all of the parcels we owned were sold. It was in a monitored live auction. It was a bit of a nail biter kind of morning because we had a high volume of registered and qualified bidders for this land auction. We had 19 that were ready to go. The parcels ranged from 12 bids on the largest section, which didn't take very long to arrive at what ended up being qualified ending price, to the last 2 auction tracks 2 and tracks 3, which extended the auction by an entire hour because the bidding was so hot. We had 58 total bids on the last track. The total cumulative sale for the auction was just over $1.7 million between 2 different buyers. We did have really great feedback on the whole auction protocol, how the video was positioned, the marketing strategy really paid off, because we do know that one of the pieces was sold to someone who was looking at it as an investment property versus an actual direct production property for themselves. So many thanks to US Bank Farm and Ranch Management's team, but also to Steffes Auctioneers for helping us to prep the video that you watched and to so efficiently handle our auction. Next slide, please. So you saw in the video that I alluded to some of the things that are happening as a result of this estate gift. We went ahead and decided after that due diligence process on what was the right fit for this particular donor. What were the things that the family, who all had complicated feelings about the fact that this was a third generation farm. There were surviving siblings. There were not direct devisees for each of those siblings. And so we needed to help navigate that process, and it took a bit of time. But what the result was they elected to open 6 donor advised funds here at WACF, one being Arvid's main charitable fund, a fund that the trustee can then advise to do additional gifting in Arvid's name, and each of his surviving siblings. We support all of those funds. To date, because the auction just happened and has not yet closed, so that large scale asset has not yet been converted into charity, we are using just the cash gifts on the front side. Over $200,000 have gone out from those donor advised funds. And you'll see there on the slide the kinds of organizations that they are helping. Beyond those mentioned in the video, a lot of faith-based organizations, things that are supporting persons with mental health or disabilities and special needs, animal rescue organizations. And the list is growing every day as we get to know those donors and work with them, giving them concierge level service for the kind of impact they want to make with their donor advised fund. We support all of them year round, and there is a recapitalization strategy that is now intact. So each of those sibling donor advised funds will be recapitalized annually for their lifetime so that they can make the difference in the world that they want to make. Arvid himself, I alluded to in the video, most of what he has his fund directly is doing. The one thing I didn't say is he is also supporting some equestrian care programs for retired racing horses across the upper Midwest, which was his personal passion. And we continue to vet out the kinds of charities that the trustee expresses interest in as the larger family converses and thinks about the kinds of things that they think Uncle Arvid might want to have done. So we are really pleased to be able to do that in relationship with this family. And carrying his legacy is our honor. At a community foundation, that is part of what we do. We come alongside each individual family to make the difference they want to be. And even when we don't have a lot of basic information, I firmly believe that Arvid's intentions were to come back and retool his estate plan. He had just done his first pass at it and he was thinking about it. But life happened and he did not get another opportunity. So it has really been our privilege to exercise all of the tools in our toolkit to try and assist this family to make the best of the situation that they have and to envision things that wouldn't have been on their radar. And they have told us that multiple times, that our unveiling and unearthing of possible organizations that they could support wouldn't have happened on their own. They needed some direction. And so that's where the trifecta of a community foundation can be really helpful, where we have a really broad toolbox and lots of things we can bring to bear. We are experts on legacy and working with professional advisors, and we know how to operationalize dollars on the ground and know the people who can do that work. So this was a really great example where those professional advisors who were trusted by Mr. Johnson knew who to make the phone call to. And we were able, because of our broad network, to tag in the other partners to make this a successful endeavor for everyone. So at this point, I think I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague, Terry Foster from the Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation, who is the executive director there, who will handle our Q&A.
Wow. Thank you, Sara. What an inspiring legacy that Arvid Johnson and the Johnson family have left now. And, thanks to Willmar Area Community Foundation for helping to facilitate that and the great impact it will continue to leave for generations to come. And all of the partners that you also mentioned that were a part of that. We only have a couple of minutes left here, but are there any questions? I don't see anything in the Q&A. But if you have something, go ahead and put it in the Q&A portal that is on our webinar here, or if it's easier, in your chat. But not seeing any, and I know that I think folks would be available for other questions through the email. I know we will provide that information. And as they mentioned at the beginning, this is being recorded. And so you can go ahead and get that contact information from there as well. So seeing no questions, I will turn it over to my colleague, Greta Stark-Crocker, for the wrap up. And thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks to all of our speakers. Thank you to Jaclyn Schroeder with U.S. Bank, Senior Philanthropic Advisor. Thank you to Scott Starkweather, U.S. Bank Farm Management. Please know that our local executive directors that you see on the screen are all here for you to answer any of your questions. If you step away from the webinar and you think of something later, just reach out to us. We're here to help. We're all here to help you in this journey. We invite your feedback. Again, you can give that to your executive directors. We will have future webinars. We hope that you will watch for them. And just a heads up, all of our webinars are recorded. So if you missed one and you really want to see it, it's out there. We can connect you. Thank you for being with us today and enjoy the rest of your day. We hope to see you at a future webinar. Bye.